Welcome to the Mystery and History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. The use of the atomic weapon in Nagasaki on August 9, 1945, accelerated the end of the conflict in the Pacific. The impact affected much of the city and thousands of residents, transforming Japan's history. The Russian food crisis of 1921 severely affected Ukraine, where entire communities faced extreme scarcity. In Blahoveshchenka, an extreme family case was recorded, revealing the desperation caused by drought and instability. The Biafra crisis in Nigeria in 1968 became one of Africa's most intense episodes. Local forces used improvised equipment while blockade and scarcity worsened an emergency that affected millions. The funeral of Leopold II of Belgium on December 22, 1909, marked the end of the monarch linked to the intense exploitation of the Congo. His colonial administration was condemned for abuses and for millions of victims. Irma Grace, called the Beautiful Beast by the press, served as a guard at Auschwitz and Belsen. Convicted of serious violations against prisoners, she received the maximum sentence in 1945 at the age of 22. Forced labor in Zanzibar in the late 19th century also involved children, like the young girl recorded in 1890, wearing a heavy metal restraint. The archipelago was a center of this trade in East Africa. Jenny Wanda Barkman served as a guard at Stutthof in occupied Poland, supervising people subjected to extreme conditions. The site became a symbol of the abuses of the German regime and of thousands of losses. Corporal Larry Matinsk offers cigarettes to people liberated from Alich on April 30, 1945. The scene symbolizes the aid given to survivors after years under extremely harsh conditions. The airship that fell in Nevada in 1957 during a nuclear experiment shows the dangers of tests carried out by the United States. The operations aim to assess the effects of atomic energy on equipment and structures. Jacobus Onen, a teacher and member of Hitler's party, was identified as responsible for the episode known as the Last Jew of Vinnitsa. The case symbolizes the extreme persecution of Jews in occupied Ukraine. Ludwig Fischer governed the Warsaw district during the German occupation and took part in the creation of the ghetto, where thousands were subjected to extreme conditions. After the war, he was tried for violations against civilians. The Boston Molasses Wave of 1919 happened when a large tank burst, releasing a flow that struck buildings and residents. The episode revealed safety failures and influenced new rules for industrial structures. On January 18, 1951, American aircraft carried out operations against strategic Chinese positions in North Korea. The mission aimed to limit enemy logistical capacity during the conflict that began in 1950. A survivor of Buchenwald identifies a former German guard in 1945 who was accused of treating prisoners with extreme severity. The recognition helped in trials for serious violations committed during the European persecution. Maximilian Kolbe was a Polish priest who offered his life for a fellow prisoner held at Auschwitz. In 1941, his decision became a symbol of courage under the extreme conditions of the German regime. Roman Polanski faced the loss of his wife Sharon Tate during the crimes of Charles Manson's group in 1969. The word "pig" left on the door became a disturbing symbol of the episode that shook Hollywood. Egyptian police detained 52 men during an operation at the floating nightclub Queen Boat in Cairo in 2001. The case exposed the legal and social persecution faced by lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in the country. During the 1971 conflict, Pakistani soldiers used body inspections to try to identify Hindu men. The invasive practice reflected the religious and ethnic tensions that marked Bangladesh's independence. A Turkish peasant says a prayer before receiving his sentence from Bulgarian soldiers in Cizre Mustafa Pasha during the Balkan campaigns of 1913. The period was marked by displacement and serious abuses. Chedomir Chupic became a symbol of Montenegrin resistance against occupying forces. In 1942, shortly before receiving his final sentence, his smile represented the courage of the anti-fascist movement in the Balkans. The operation against warehouses and port facilities in Wonsan in 1951 was part of the missions of the American 5th Air Force. B-26 aircraft struck logistical structures to limit enemy transport. The trade of people between East Africa and the Arabian Peninsula continued until the late 19th century, mainly involving women and children forced into labor. This practice marked a period of human exploitation before it was banned in the region. The SS Morro Castle episode in 1934 was marked by a serious fire that caused 137 losses. The incident revealed failures in maritime safety and led to reforms in navigation and rescue rules. Antoine Dubuclet Jr., the first black treasurer of Louisiana, was also a prosperous sugar producer in the 19th century, managing properties that used the forced labor of more than 100 people. In 1939, near Marshall, Texas, a black man holds a horn once used to summon workers subjected to the forced system. The image reveals how the marks of that period remained decades later. Albina Mali Hocevar, a Yugoslav fighter from Slovenia, took part in the resistance between 1941 and 1945 during World War II. Wounded 3 times, she fought all the way to Trieste, showing the crucial role of women against Axis forces in the Balkans. The American Civil War between 1861 and 1865 pitted North against South, where the Confederacy defended forced labor. The image of a Confederate soldier with a black boy shows the inequalities of that period. The record made in Naples in 1944 shows solidarity among young people facing the hardships of the conflict when children with serious physical limitations dealt with daily challenges. The image bears witness to human resilience. In 1863, during the American Civil War, New Orleans was a crucial point in disputes over slavery, even involving white children called white slave children. With cloaks resembling the Confederate flag, they symbolize the complex social and racial reality of the American South. On February 16, 1934, children with Down syndrome hospitalized at Schönbrunn Hospital illustrate Germany's strict institutional policies. People with disabilities would face increasingly discriminatory measures. At the De Beer mine in Kimberley, South Africa, black workers underwent X-ray exams at the end of their shifts to monitor lung diseases caused by diamond mining, a common practice in October 1954 that reflected the harsh conditions of apartheid. Cousins of the Queen of England with mental disabilities were kept hidden from the public during the 20th century, reflecting the stigma and secrecy of the era around taboo conditions in the British royal family. This shows the reserved treatment given to vulnerable members of the royal family. Mustafa Tabet, a Moroccan police commissioner, was tried in 1993 for corruption and serious violations committed against at least 518 women. The case exposed a deep crisis of abuse of authority within the security forces. Jeffrey Dahmer was in West Germany in 1979, a period when serious alcohol problems contributed to his discharge from the Army in 1981. Years later, his involvement in a series of crimes gained worldwide attention. Charles Manson became infamous for leading a group involved in the Tate LaBianca cases in 1969, events that deeply shook the United States. The mugshot records his arrest and the trial that led to his conviction. Sharon Tate lost her life at age 26 during the crimes of Charles Manson's group. 4 days earlier, she had been photographed while pregnant and choosing clothes for the baby, making the record especially striking. The trial of Marcel Pétion in Paris in 1946 marked one of the darkest cases of post-war France. The doctor was accused in the disappearance of 27 people, and suitcases with their belongings strengthened the accusations. Father Hans Schmidt became notorious in 1913 after being convicted of a serious crime involving a woman. Disturbing accusations increased public attention, and he received the maximum sentence in the United States. Ramon Mercader, an agent of the NKVD, was arrested in August 1940 after attacking Leon Trotsky at his home in Mexico City. The episode symbolized Soviet persecution of opponents of Stalinism. The death of James Powell, a 15-year-old black teenager struck by a police officer in 1964, caused 6 days of unrest in Harlem. The episode exposed deep racial tensions and marked the struggle for civil rights. The Detroit unrest of 1967 began after strong racial tensions and complaints against the police. Over 5 days, clashes left more than 40 victims and major damage across the city. The confrontation between protesters and an extremist group in Atlanta on January 21, 1989, revealed racial tension in the United States. During the march, police faced unrest and one officer was struck. In 1983, a demonstration in Austin recorded a member of an extremist group seeking protection behind a black police officer during unrest. The scene revealed the contradictions of that moment. The encounter between a child wearing the outfit of an extremist group and a black police officer during a protest in Gainesville in 1992 shows the contrast between childhood and the intolerance of that environment. On August 30, 1964 in Philadelphia, police intervened in demonstrations held during intense racial tensions. A man with visible marks on his shirt was removed from the scene, reflecting the harshness of the confrontations. Women protested on October 9, 1956, in Fort Worth against racial integration at Calvary Church Assembly of God. The demonstration reflected opposition to the changes that began after the Brown v. Board decision. At the women's prison in New Orleans in 1965, racial division was marked by the sign, "White Female," reserved for white women. This separation reflected discriminatory rules still present in the southern United States. Nelson Mandela raised his fists in a gesture of resistance after being sentenced to life in prison in June 1964 during the Rivonia trial, a milestone in the fight against apartheid in South Africa. His sentence symbolized the struggle against segregation and mobilized international support. Peng Liyuan performed for military forces in Beijing after the events of Tiananmen Square in 1989. The event took place during a moment of high political tension and aimed to strengthen troop morale. In 1970, demonstrations in Poland led to the burning of a Workers' Party building, reflecting dissatisfaction with the communist regime. The protests called for the return of leaders such as Bierut and Stalin amid a political and economic crisis marked by repression and state control. The Berlin Bunker was the final refuge of Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun in April 1945, when Germany's defeat was imminent. Both died there on April 30th, marking the symbolic end of the Third Reich. Harroport suffered the consequences of the Great Harbor Blast in 1946, when its industrial port zone was destroyed. The event shows the impact of the final phases of World War II on urban industrial centers, damaging reconstruction and the local economy. The Hindenburg airship episode on May 6, 1937, caused 35 losses, including 28 Germans who received a collective ceremony. The event echoed around the world in an era marked by symbols of the German regime. The collision of a B-25 aircraft with the Empire State Building on July 28, 1945, caused major damage in New York. The incident left 14 victims and marked the history of civil aviation. David Alexander Johnston was photographed only hours before the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980. He lost his life while monitoring the first signs of the event that transformed the region. North Korean women detained in Taegu on October 8, 1950, are led by American forces to a train bound for Busan. The record shows the conditions faced by people in custody. The evacuation and treatment of affected service members near Buna in 1942 took place during the New Guinea Campaign. Allied forces advanced under extreme geographic and weather conditions. Colonel Francis Fenton leads the farewell ceremony for his son, Private Mike Fenton, near Shuri, Okinawa, in May 1945. The scene represents the losses suffered in the confrontation between the United States and Japan. During operations in the Pacific, farewell ceremonies honored aviators who did not return from missions. These rituals strengthened unity among service members and represented the losses faced between 1941 and 1945. George S. Patton died on December 21, 1945, after a car collision in Germany. The image of his dog after the incident became a symbol of farewell to an important American military figure. An orphaned boy in Berlin tries to trade his father's Iron Cross for basic goods in 1945. The scene symbolizes the poverty and hardships faced by children at the end of the conflict. On April 17, 1942, during World War II, residents of North Cheam, Surrey, England, faced food shortages and formed lines to buy horse meat at local butcher shops. This measure was approved by the British government to secure food. A war veteran in Canterbury, Kent, England, faces economic hardship while selling matches on the streets in 1930. Wearing a uniform with medals, his effort reveals the social and financial impact of World War I, which left many soldiers unsupported. The 1930 drought in Lonoke County, Arkansas, marked a critical period for rural populations in the United States who faced shortages of food and water. Organizations such as the Red Cross distributed meals to ease the effects of the crisis, revealing social and environmental challenges. The Great Depression, which began with the stock market crash in 1929, caused devastating financial losses, leading many Americans to sell essential belongings, like this man offering his car for $100. This episode shows the crisis that shook the United States and the world in the 1930s. The childhood of many boys in Scotts Run, West Virginia, during the Great Depression was marked by work in coal mining. In 1936, barefoot boys faced the harsh winter to help their families survive, showing the hard reality of poverty. Child labor in textile industries subjected girls to long workdays in unsafe environments, such as cotton mills in 1908. The practice remained common until new laws limited this labor force. The slums of Cumberland Street in Dublin in the 1940s show the harsh reality of urban poverty caused by the economic crisis and World War II. The decay of housing showed the lack of infrastructure and the social impact on large families, with children in poor conditions photographed by Paul Popper. Thomas Annan documented the conditions of Glasgow's slums in 1868, photographing everyday scenes in alleys such as Old Vennel on High Street. His work revealed the harsh urban reality of the Industrial Revolution and helped fight social neglect. The Kalamazoo Psychiatric Asylum in Michigan in 1870 shows early mental health practices in the United States, where patients, mainly women, were kept in controlled environments. These conditions reflect restricted treatment before more humane advances in the 20th century. The West Riding Asylum in Wakefield represents 19th century psychiatric treatment when patients were subjected to harsh methods of restraint. In 1869, these devices reflected limited medical knowledge. Patients in old psychiatric institutions were kept isolated and subjected to severe conditions, as this record shows. The absence of proper treatments reveals the prejudice and medical limitations of the time. The Capuchin crypt in Rome, photographed around 1900, has decoration made from historical remains arranged on the walls and ceiling. The composition reflects the religious tradition of meditating on the passage of life. The Paris catacombs, used since the 18th century to receive remains transferred from overcrowded cemeteries, displayed impressively organized galleries in 1935. The visits presented a historical memorial of the city. Doctors' outfits during the plague in the 17th century had beak masks filled with herbs to filter the air. Made of leather, they included gloves and hats, representing early attempts to control epidemics such as the bubonic plague in Europe between 1600 and 1700. During World War II, children in England wore gas masks as protection against chemical attacks, reflecting the fear of bombings. This precaution became routine in urban areas, showing the impact of the conflict on civilian life. In Poland during the 1930s, preparation for chemical threats gained attention amid European tension. Police officers and service dogs were trained and equipped with gas masks to respond to possible attacks, reflecting the climate of insecurity before World War II. Benito Mussolini visited recovering service members to boost the morale of Italian troops. In 1941, a photograph was censored because it captured the clear anxiety of a young fighter in front of him. Young members of a German organization guard the coffins of 5 English students who lost their lives in the Black Forest in 1936. The ceremony took place during a period of growing European tensions. A young German soldier captured after the Normandy campaign sits on a church bench in July 1944. The region was the site of the Allied invasion on June 6, 1944, a crucial event that marked the beginning of Germany's decline in Western Europe. Tsar Nicholas II appears in 1917 under custody beside his son, doing simple tasks such as sawing wood. Months later, the imperial family lost their lives, marking the end of the Russian monarchy. During the liberation of France in 1944, women accused of collaboration were subjected to public humiliation, including the forced cutting of their hair. The practice reflected the resentment left by the German occupation. In London, struck by the attacks of 1940 and 1941, a bride leaves a severely damaged home to attend her wedding. The scene symbolizes hope and the continuation of civilian life. Tupac Shakur, an influential figure in 1990s rap, was photographed shortly before he died on September 13, 1996, in Las Vegas. His loss marked the peak of tensions between the East Coast and West Coast scenes. Al Capone, a well-known organized crime boss during Prohibition, appears with his wife May in Miami on Christmas 1946. He was suffering complications from an infection acquired decades earlier and died only a few weeks later. Susan Peters gained fame in Hollywood in the 1940s, but her career changed at age 24 after a hunting incident affected her movement. She tried to return to public life, but died at 31 from respiratory complications. Anna Coleman Ladd created prosthetic masks for French service members with serious facial injuries. In 1918, she carefully rebuilt the appearance of patients, helping them face the physical and emotional consequences. Dr. Harvey Cushing was a pioneer in neurosurgery in the early 20th century, documenting his patients with portraits that show the complexity of brain surgeries at the time. His work between 1900 and 1930 laid the foundation for modern medical techniques. The portable iron lung of 1955 was a crucial advance in polio treatment, allowing seriously ill patients to breathe with mechanical help at home. This innovation increased patients' independence and marked an important moment in post-war respiratory medicine. The American Red Cross in St. Louis worked intensely during the 1918 flu pandemic, when thousands were affected by the H1N1 virus. The city adopted strict measures, and the work of volunteers was crucial in helping the sick. John Bodkin Adams, a general practitioner investigated for several suspicious deaths, was acquitted in 1957 after a trial in London, with the jury deciding in only 44 minutes. The case sparked debate about medical ethics and British justice. The contamination of the fountain known as the Pump of Death in 1876 revealed a serious public health crisis in England. Groundwater carried waste from old cemeteries into public fountains, pushing reforms forward. In the early 20th century, electric therapies were used to treat various conditions, although the lack of control over the equipment could cause skin injuries. These methods came before safer treatments. In 1975, an art performance showed a high-speed car crashing into a wall of burning televisions, symbolizing a critique of media and technology's influence on society. The act reflected debate over the impact of media on public behavior. The nuclear shelter for United States members of Congress, created in the 1960s, symbolizes Cold War tension and the fear of nuclear confrontation. These spaces protected leaders in case of attacks, reflecting concern for national security during the arms race. Vasily Arkhipov stood out during the Cuban Missile Crisis by refusing the launch of a nuclear device against an American ship. His decision prevented a dangerous escalation between the powers. United States airmail faced extremely dangerous conditions in the 1920s and 1930s, and 31 of the first 40 pilots did not survive the early years. These pioneers created routes that transformed mail delivery. The BE-2 of the Royal Naval Air Service became caught in overhead wires during a flight training exercise. Similar incidents were common and show the challenges of aviation between 1914 and 1918. The Russian experimental tank of 1914 marked the beginning of innovations in armored weapons during World War I, when armies tried to overcome trench deadlock. Its complexity and shape made effective use in the conflict difficult. The Rhino, created in 1954, was an experimental all-terrain vehicle developed to handle rough ground, with an innovative design and a cabin protected by curved glass. Designed for research, it represents the era's effort to expand off-road mobility. The punt gun was a large device used to hit several ducks at once. Used in the 19th century, the practice was restricted because it reduced waterfowl populations. The Schumann Circus performance in Copenhagen in the 1950s showed trained animals, such as dressed bears, riding a motorized scooter, performing in the ring. This practice reflected a time when circuses included animal acts before criticism and restrictions became common. The circus visit to a children's hospital in the 1930s had an unexpected reception, as Charlie Smith, the clown, could not ease the children's discomfort. This scene shows the challenges of hospital entertainment, when humor did not overcome fear or sadness. In 1930s London, it was common to hang baby cages from windows to expose children to outdoor air, a practice seen as healthy in polluted and crowded urban areas. This reflected the strong concern about childhood respiratory diseases at the time. In 1930s Los Angeles, a police stop involving an ostrich-drawn carriage showed the coexistence of motor vehicles and exotic transportation. This scene highlighted the challenge authorities faced with new traffic rules during the city's technological transition. The aerial photograph of Edinburgh in 1920 shows the city seen from a biplane, with the photographer strapped in for safety, risking himself to capture images that expanded aviation and photography, documented the post-World War I urban landscape, and inspired mapping. 4 Padaong women, known for neck elongation, seek directions from a London police officer on Elgin Avenue in 1935. The scene shows the cultural presence and challenges of Asian immigrants in pre-World War II London, reflecting the capital's diversity. Anna Swan, at about 7 feet 10 inches tall, stood out in the late 19th century as a circus performer who challenged physical norms. She appeared alongside dwarf performers like the one in the photo, highlighting the contrast that fascinated audiences and shaped entertainment of the time. Jean Libera became known as the man with 2 bodies for carrying his parasitic brother, Jacques Libera, connected to his chest and abdomen. This rare congenital condition, studied since the early 20th century, drew medical and public attention because of its impact on his life. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, mechanical devices like this were used to measure the human body and monitor physical changes over time in early anthropometric studies tied to the science of physical development and preventive medicine. Rosa Shanina was a Soviet sharpshooter who took part in operations on the Eastern Front between the ages of 19 and 20. With 54 recorded targets, she symbolized the important role of women in Soviet forces. At 17 years old, Maria Ginesta represents the youth of the Spanish Civil War, a conflict that devastated Spain between 1936 and 1939. In Barcelona, the center of Republican resistance, young people like her fought to defend their ideals against Franco's advance. The Vietnam War in 1967 was marked by resistance among soldiers, expressed in the phrase on the helmet, "War is good business, invest your son." This reveals discontent and criticism of economic motives, showing political and social tension in the United States. In 1915, during World War I, French soldiers marched with a masked dog wearing goggles and a pipe, used to raise morale and distract troops on the battlefield. These animals strengthened the bond among soldiers and played a strategic role in the conflict until 1918. The Cathedral of Notre Dame of Reims was struck by German fire on September 19, 1914. The episode caused major damage to the building and affected a heritage site tied to French national identity. Hans Prinzhorn, a psychiatrist and art historian, published Prisoner's Art in 1926, bringing together drawings and tattoos from psychiatric patients that reflected artistic expression in institutional settings. This tattooed woman represents the era's interest in outsider art. In 1922, dentistry used gramophones to distract patients during painful treatments, showing the limits of pain control at the time. This scene reveals concerns about comfort in early 20th century dental offices before modern anesthesia became common. In England in 1925, everyday scenes show the relationship between authorities and the public, such as a boy attaching a firework to a police officer's clothing. The photo reveals social and cultural details of city life in the post-World War I era. In 1966, John Lennon's statement that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus caused a strong reaction in the United States, where young people burned the band's records in protest. This episode reflected cultural tensions and the impact of pop music on American society. The 1950 photograph shows a surreal setup with 2 women in vintage bikinis whose heads appear separated from their bodies, an illusion common in artistic experiments of the time. This manipulation reveals the post-war interest in creative photography. On August 18, 1982, the Beverly Hills Police adopted the DC-2 police robot, a pioneering milestone in public safety technology. Equipped with a cathode ray tube screen and keyboard, the DC-2 symbolized the early use of robotics to support crime investigation and monitoring. London police in 1935 used a device connected to the gas network to signal traffic in thick fog that made visibility difficult on the streets. This method came before electronic traffic lights and reveals the city's challenges in the face of growing pollution. The title, Lord High Executioner in the princely state of Rewa in central India, indicated an official role tied to the enforcement of justice in the late 19th century. The armor symbolized the power and authority of that position. Jean Vosta, born in the Belgian Congo, was the only recorded black prisoner at Dachau. In May 1945, after liberation, he and other survivors began the difficult rebuilding of their lives. The hyperinflation that hit Germany in 1923 destroyed the value of the currency, making banknotes almost useless. The use of money to make kites, as shown by children of the time, symbolizes the economic crisis that damaged financial stability and daily life for the population. Michelangelo's statue of David was protected during World War II by a brick structure to prevent damage from bombings. The measure aimed to preserve cultural heritage in Italy, especially in Florence, where it has been in the Galleria dell'Accademia since the 19th century. Wounded Indian soldiers received care at the Royal Pavilion in Brighton, which was turned into a military hospital during the World War I. In 1918, this humanitarian effort showed the crucial role and intense suffering of British colonial troops in the global conflict. In 1957, Pleasanton, Texas, faced school desegregation after a vote ended racial separation in local public schools. Students began working together on shared projects, symbolizing the beginning of changes that anticipated civil rights in the United States. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.